Today is a solo episode and the second in a series about the slow style framework, which is the approach I use to teach people how to create their own beautiful, meaningful homes one room at a time, in case you're new around here. As a reminder, the first episode of this series was about step one of the framework, which is called Envision. And you can listen to that episode right here on your podcast player. I also created a worksheet to go with it that walks you through how to create a vision for your room in a very specific way. This vision will be the foundation for making all of the design decisions you're going to make, regardless of how fast or slow you move, or how big or small the changes are. Okay. If you haven't already, you can go to slowstylehome.com to download that worksheet, that guide. And I'll link to it in the description of this episode and in the show notes page on our website at slowstylehome.com. So again, the first episode in this series was about step one, Envision. And now today I'm going to go over step two, which is called Experiment. Paying attention to this step can not only save you time and money, it'll also build your confidence when it comes to making design decisions about everything from, the smallest drawer pull to decisions that for an entire top to bottom makeover. How does it help with that? Well, if you did listen to the first episode or downloaded the guide, think about what you've done already, or at least thought about already. You've identified in detail your ideal room setting and vibe, experience, emotions, all of that juicy stuff. Now, doing that alone might have sparked some very specific ideas for furniture and decor items, but most likely it hasn't. And that's because we haven't gotten to the part where we connect the dots between your vision and making concrete design decisions. So, I'm talking about things like choosing colors and patterns and furniture materials, all that stuff, based on how you want to feel and what you want to experience in each room of your house. So let's start connecting those dots. Step two is experimenting with what you already own. And I always recommend starting with what you have rather than rushing out to buy something new for several reasons. One, you'll be learning valuable design lessons without spending any money and having buyer's remorse or regrets. Two, through experimentation, you'll be gaining confidence, which means you'll make better decisions when you do go out to buy something. And three, it's just better for the planet to take your time, repurpose what you have in ways maybe you haven't thought of because you didn't take the time, and keeping things out of landfills by buying less disposable decor. Okay. But let's stay with the design related reasons for experimentation right now. Testing out how things work and noticing why they don't work, as well as when they do work and why. These are the ways in which you get better at creative thinking. So if you think you're not creative and worry that you don't know anything about style or design, or you don't have an eye for it, naturally, let me tell you that you actually can develop all of those skills. You don't need to be born with them. It takes two very specific and basic things: paying close attention and trying things out. When you're working with what you already have, moving things around, changing things up, using pieces in different ways, you're also, or you should be, noticing what you like, what you're drawn to, what makes your heart sing. And that work is what leads to a very personal signature style, one that you may have mistakenly thought was only to be had by naturally creative people. All right, let's dig into what exactly I mean by experimentation and how to get the most out of experimenting. I've often said that the best way to start aligning your room with the vision that you've created for it is to start with completely fresh eyes. Okay, especially if you're not a pro. I think a lot of us struggle with this. So that means moving everything out of the room. And yeah, it's a pain in the arse, especially when you're moving heavy things. But if you're one of those people who can't picture what something will look like until they've seen it, like a different furniture arrangement, for example, you might want to consider not skipping this part. However, whether you move out all of the heavy stuff or not, I definitely recommend at least moving everything else out. So the clothes, the mirrors, the artwork, the lamps, the rugs, the stuff, lightweight furniture, and of course, anything small. Okay. Move as much out as you possibly can. Go back to your vision worksheet, guide, whatever, and identify which, if any, of the big things, the heavy things currently in the room already match your vision. And I mean, really align with the direction you want to go in terms of style and color and size and material, all of it. If they do, great, they get to stay. Or maybe you already know, or you've done, an assessment of your home, which I'll get to in a second. So you already know that there's a different option somewhere else in the house that better aligns with your vision than what's currently in there. That's great as well. Then that comes in. And I know that means that you now have a piece of furniture missing in a different room since you stole it and pulled it into the room you're currently working on. But remember, we're focusing on one room at a time. The other room is just going to have to wait. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So at this point, you may need some placeholders, right? But only for the necessary things. Everything else can wait. So now you've got this empty or mostly empty room. How do you know what things are going to express the feelings you want to have in the room? What design choices will correlate with your vision, will evoke the experience you want to have? For example, let's say you're working on your bedroom. If in your vision worksheet, let's say you talked about not feeling energized when you woke up, and also in the evenings, then you're already dreading the morning because you know you're going to wake up tired. Makes it harder to go to sleep, right? It's a vicious cycle. I think all of us have been there at one point or another. And this lack of good sleep and also this lack of energy in the morning, it's affecting your work. It's affecting your time with your family. It's limiting your ability to exercise or have a good breakfast, and it's increasing your anxiety. So what you want, what you're saying in your vision, is that you want a bedroom that gives you a replenishing sleep and an energetic morning. That's the vision statement that this hypothetical person came up with. So this means the color of the walls, the types of window treatments, your bedding, your lighting, what you see when you first wake up, all are in play here, and they all need to connect to that vision. Now, for many of us, it might help to first go through your typical nighttime and morning routines and look for pain points. And what I mean by that is the goal in any room of the house is for every action you take in there to be unencumbered, so that doing what you need to do doesn't feel like a chore. There isn't any friction between what you want or need to do and doing it. So keeping with this bedroom example, some pain points might be you keep knocking off your stuff from your bedside table in the middle of the night when you're groping for your lip balm, and then that clatter wakes you up. And so you know you're going to need something that stores and organizes your stuff better. Or maybe you use your phone to read at night because your partner goes to sleep before you and your regular bedside lamp bothers them. And so you need a smaller, more focused light. So we got to figure out a different kind of light source. And what if another pain point is when you first open your eyes in the morning, the first thing you see is dirty laundry. So, no wonder you want to pull the covers over your head and go right back to sleep. So you'll need to think intentionally about what you do want to see every day when you wake up that'll set you off in the right direction for the kind of day you want to have. So look around your home, see if you already have anything that'll solve these problems. They don't have to be perfect. They can be placeholders. The point is to see what a different solution feels like. Not what you imagine would be a good or perfect solution, but what you actually know will be good because you've tried it out. And I said I'd come back to something about, taking an audit of your home and going through and really understanding what you might have to pull from. I don't think you should just assume that you don't have stuff that can be placeholders or even be the real thing that you're going to replace something with out of your stash of what you already have. And if you do get the free guide that I mentioned, that talks about the first step in this process, which is the envisioning step. You'll get further emails and including another worksheet that helps you do an audit of your home. So anyway, what I'm saying here with paying attention to your particular pain points, your points of friction, is that everyone has different needs for every part of their home, right? There's no one paint color for your walls that I can point to and say, yes, every bedroom should be painted X, or even this shade of X. It's the same with the type of sheets that you should use and the type of window treatments. So what you need to do is keep going back to your vision. What aspects of your room would make you fall asleep easily and peacefully? What are we talking, silk sheets? Or are we talking cotton sheets? Or are we talking velvet pillows, silk pillowcases? Or are we talking linen? What will work for you? Think about everything from the height of your bedside table, the type of bulbs you use in your lamps, what you want to feel under your bare feet when your feet first touch the ground in the morning. Keep going back and forth between your vision and what you're experiencing as you try new ideas. All right, let's go into the living room for another example. Let's say your vision for this room is to create a space that fosters really great conversation between friends. Not superficial small talk, but the kind of conversations where you feel really connected to others. That is one of your values. It's really important to you, and it really fills you up. And yet, the last time you had people over for cocktails, it just felt off. It felt sort of uncomfortable and less relaxed than you'd like to be. So the conversations didn't get quite as personal or deep or whatever. And you know this because your delicious appetizers were barely eaten, and there were several sidebar conversations happening between people that sort of killed the whole group vibe. So let's look at the design and see what might be happening. But let's say this person placed their rectangular coffee table in the middle of the room, equidistant from every chair and couch, every place to sit. So the coffee table is centered in the room, which does seem to make sense. However, what if it's too small for the space and therefore it isn't close enough to any seat so that people are kind of feeling awkward getting up and down to fill their plates. And so people just kind of feel stuck. It's also maybe hard to move around the sharp corners of the table because it's rectangular. And plus, not everyone has a place right next to them to put down their drinks. So then they're preoccupied with thinking about whether or not they should put their drink on the floor rather than tuning into the conversation. And as for those sidebar conversations, the seating is kind of spread out to fill up the room. Maybe all of the furniture is sort of against the walls. It's too far apart from each other to have that single conversation, with the whole group. So sidebar conversations are happening pretty naturally. Okay, so you start experimenting. You pull the furniture closer together. You bring in side tables from another room or use placeholders, which again, can be anything. It can be a crate, a stack of books, a stool. What you're doing is you're playing around with different options in terms of size and shape and height. And when you've lived with this new setup for a little bit, you'll have a visceral understanding of what practical aspects you're looking for when you do go to replace your placeholders. You're going to have a lot more confidence pulling the trigger on a side table or a lamp or whatever because you've practiced already with other things. But that's not all of it, right? It can't just be about the height. We're also talking about what things look like, because that matters in terms of executing your vision. So experimentation is not just for practical things. Once you know what the functional aspects are, you still need to know if your coffee table should be made of wood or glass or marble, right? And whether or not your couch, you want that to be patterned or leather or velvet. So experimentation is also how you start to understand basic principles of design. Things like visual weight, symmetry, asymmetry, scale, how color and pattern work together. Let's say you have a natural focal point in a room, such as a fireplace. Or maybe there is no obvious architectural focal point. So you've got a bunch of shelves up along one wall. That kind of standing in for you've created your own focal point. All right. Go back to your vision for the room and ask yourself, what objects do you currently own that best represent the feelings you're hoping to infuse the room with? So take everything else off the mantle or the 2 or 3 of the shelves and start playing around with how to display them. Here's another example. Let's say in your vision worksheet, you wanted a dining room to be a place where your whole family wanted to come for holiday dinners because cooking for people is your favorite way to express your love for them. And since your focus is on your family, you want to fill the dining room with things that'll bring up great memories and conversations. So you've got a buffet in the dining room. It's kind of big, long against one wall, and you start experimenting with putting a bunch of framed family photos on top. Right? That's going to maybe spark some great memories. Well, you step back and realize they're kind of getting lost. They're not standing out because they're too small. It's a bunch of small little things on a much bigger table, and they're too far away from where people are sitting. So no one's really paying attention to them. They're not getting noticed. So instead, you look around your house, you maybe dig through some stuff stored in boxes or whatever, and you pull out bigger sentimental objects and start playing around with those. And as you're experimenting with how to display your objects, you start noticing how they look together from a design perspective. You're looking at the variation of height and shape and whether or not that's pleasing to you. Is there a common visual element that threads them together? Is there some empty space around the objects, giving it a little bit of breathing room? Or is everything so spread out that it looks like you're having a garage sale? Most of all, does how you've arranged things draw people in so that they really look at the object? Because you want them to spark memories and conversations, after all, not just be on display for the sake of showing off your great stuff, right? Oh, and by the way, as for those little framed family photographs go, you can save those for maybe a powder room or something where people are, it's a much smaller space. People are actually going to see them. All right, okay, let's keep going. Once you've got your cherished family heirlooms on the buffet, and because they're bigger, you don't need a lot of them. Maybe you just need one to make a statement, or 2 or 3. But anyway, you're happy with how they look. And now you find yourself out and about, thrifting or antiquing or just at a shop. And all of a sudden you come across a lamp. Maybe it's a vintage lamp. But anyway, it's a stunning lamp that you just, in your gut, you go, oh my gosh, I love that lamp. And you think, oh, it could be a great compliment to the personal things you already have on the buffet. And you buy it with confidence because you've spent time experimenting with your display. And so the scale, the shape, the color of the lamp is going to work with what you already have. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, though. That's we're now starting to get into the execution style of the slow style framework, which is the 3rd step. And I'll be talking about that in another soon to be released future episode. What I hope you've taken away from today's topic is the motivation to start experimenting and understanding what you can gain from it when you experiment and pay attention to how it's working out. So you're noticing as you're getting closer and closer to your vision, if you feel the difference. Start paying attention to what physical and visual stimuli make you feel the best and lean into that. Again, you can get started with the very first step, free guide on the website, slowstylehome.com. Just click on free guide or just find the link right here in the description of this episode. And of course, if you want to go back and listen to the first episode in the series, the one about envisioning, please do that as well. You can find that also right here in your podcast playlist.